We're back, folks. After the hiccup there earlier, we're back, and tonight is a special night. It's always great to have Allie Peak Wilbur on, but tonight especially, she has some views about what Billy Napier said in his press conference. And shortly after she joins us, Chris Doering climbs aboard. Always glad to hear from number 28, one of the greats, talking about, among other things, the event he's putting on here soon at Steve Spurrier's Grind Grill. And then, of course, it's David Moulton. That's why we have to call this show Sweet and Sour. What do we do with it? We got Doring in the middle. What is he? Sweet? I don't know, something sour. Stand by. The Buddy Martin Show is about to be on the air, and Allie Peak Wilbur waiting in the room, and she's got stuff coming to you right here on this channel.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening on another chilly night here in Florida. And by the way, it's going to get warmer tomorrow. I heard up to 75 degrees. Ooh, tropical weather, man, compared to what we've been having. And I hope you're having a good night. Sorry I had a hiccup earlier tonight. Pushed the wrong button. But this is us. We're live. We're here with you as we are each Monday, Wednesday. Well, actually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at this time. So lots going on. Always glad to have this show on this night because one of my favorite, not just sportscasters or podcasters, people is Allie Peak Wilbur. You all know she's standing by. We're going to go get her right now. In the orange and blue room, where she's snacking on candy because she was too busy to have dinner tonight. So, Allie, take a break. Go ahead and get yourself some candy, some food, and power down that snack.
Yeah, I'm literally eating Twizzlers cards.
Oh,
right
you
now. Candy, by the way. But I just walked in the door like just a minute ago. I have been going since 45 this morning, and I have not had dinner yet. So here we are.
Someday I'll get a camera to follow you around, what you do in a day with two pairs of twins plus Eric and all the podcasting you do. And man, I don't know how you cram it in one day.
Today was a lot. There was a lot of driving for gymnastics. I had a meeting with our district. I'm the PTA president of my school, so we had a
that
meeting.
too. Okay, yeah.
Lots of craziness. Not actually anything sports related. All school responsibility related. Related.
Well, good for you. You're a great mom and a great fan, and do a great job at what you do there. And people who follow this program know you well. Well, tonight we get to talk to old number 28. One of the greats, one of the great people, and one of the great performers. And Doring got a touchdown guy, and we'll get a chance to catch up with his views. And we both watched. I actually watched only about half the presser today, and we have some things to say about Billy Napier, which probably aren't going to sound very kind, but look, we're both wanting him to succeed. Okay, we certainly hope, and I hope that he will. But you can't be Johnny One Note. You got to change your message someplace. To me, sound like the same old message. Allie, how about you?
You know, there was some interesting parts about it. I'm actually looking to pull up some tweets right now about it. But he mentioned that Hawk is being moved to an off the field role, and it has to do with like positive messaging or something, which really sounds like it's out of a Saturday Night Live skit. Is crazy to me, but okay, so that's where we are there. And then I think the most interesting thing he said was that Ron Roberts is going to oversee the defense, but Austin Armstrong will call plays. So that makes it sound like Ron Roberts is actually now the defensive coordinator. And then he said Roberts can coach the coaches in his role. His quote was, "We get the wisdom and the system, and this guy has mentored a million coaches in his career, so I think it's a positive." And while I do think it's a positive for our young coaches to have mentors, I think that that's saying maybe that Austin Armstrong wasn't ready yet to be defensive coordinator in DC, because if you are hiring a coach to coach the coaches, that's not great. That's an on-the-job training kind of thing. And we're Florida. We don't really need on-the-job training coaches.
Let's go see what Chris Doering says about that. Chris, you look cold.
It's chilly outside, man. Just walking the dogs out here. 40-something degree temperatures, man. I got to put the hoodie on.
Thought you lived in Florida.
Don't act like you're warm outside, buddy. You're a Florida boy more than any of us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How are you, Chris? Good to talk to you. Allie and I were just talking about the message from Billy today. I don't know if you heard any of it or not. First of all, how you doing? Secondly, how are you feeling about how things are going for your football team?
Well, I'll comment on what you guys were just discussing, and I think hiring Ron Roberts was the best offseason move that Florida's made. You know, you look around at the coaches that he's had under his discipleship over his career. There's a bunch of really good defensive minds across the college football landscape, particularly here in the SEC, that he has mentored at one time or the other. And I was in Oxford last offseason calling Ole Miss's spring game. Had a chance to sit down with Pete Golding. I think I've talked to you guys about this before, but Pete Golding, one of the real it was like, listening to him was like that movie, A Beautiful Mind, where he's just talking about things that feel like they're about 10,000 feet above my head. And just, I feel like my football knowledge is pretty great. So one of the things that he went on and on about when I had a chance to talk to him was just how much of an impact Ron Roberts had on his development. And so there's so many other coaches like that that are also the same. And I agree with you, Allie, that, you know, it's not a great sign about or endorsement of how the head coach feels about the rest of the staff on that side. But, you know, I do believe in Austin Armstrong. I think he's got a great ability to connect with some of the players with his enthusiasm and his youth. And so I think it's a nice hire that will help not only Austin Armstrong in his development as a coordinator, but also as a defense and as a team as a whole.
Yeah, well, I mean, naturally, when you have back-to-back losing seasons, you're not going to have a lot of great comments. You're going to have critics. And Florida's got theirs, and we got a bunch of them on the show lately, last night's show especially. We had Freddie Weeby on last night, the new director of revenue for Florida Victorious, which I think is the best move they've made so far. I do know Freddie. I know his work ethic. I know his intelligence, what a genius he is. And we're talking a lot about responsibility of people to support their team. And some people took it, you know, sort of like, well, what do you mean? I don't have to. Let them win some games first. It's hard to know, Dally. You start with the chicken and the egg. Which is going to be first? I think Shane said it earlier in the week. Today, to sign a player, you got to win all the time or you got to have a lot of money. All right? So the money part of this thing has got to be rectified. I think they made a step in that direction last night. But I want to hear you all's opinion. There's still work to do. What are you getting from that, Allie? Anything?
I think that there's fundamental changes that have to happen within the UAA for the money side to be able to be where we need it to be. And some of that is just letting go of the address book, essentially the Rolodex, right? And spreading around where those donations end up. And the UAA doesn't get to allocate money to NIL, but they can definitely tell a donor, hey, it would be really beneficial if this is where you place some of that money. And I think our coaches are kind of handicapped if the UAA isn't willing to funnel some of that in the direction of Victorious. And, if you listen to the press conference today, Napier said something really interesting. And he basically said it took 18 months for us to get a pulse on this landscape and figure out what we needed to do, what our approach was going to be. And we want it to be, a strength for University of Florida. And so that was interesting to me because that's admitting publicly that you had no idea what you were doing the first 18 months, essentially. And, is that a dagger at Strickland? I don't know. But it was interesting to see the admission in public that we didn't know what we were doing yet, but now we think that we have that going. But again, they've got to have the money. They've got to have and they have to have the ability to freely spend it, essentially.
I'll agree with Allie. You talk about not being ready for NIL. I don't know that a lot of people were, although there were some teams within this conference that were doing a little NIL business before NIL was legal, and so maybe they had a head start on some of that. But I think it's such a tough subject to talk about. Shane, I know is kind of down on the whole NIL thing. I am too, and I've come on here and talked to you guys before about the entitlement that I feel like these players have, and it makes it very hard for me to think about allocating any money to the NIL cause. But if you want your team to win, it does come down to being able to, as much as the NCAA hates to say it, buy the right players. And I just think it's interesting right now. We're in the midst of an investigation going on.
Yeah.
Over the recruitment of Jaden Rashada, a player that never received $1 from the University of Florida, never played a down for the University of Florida, and Florida's a 5-7 football team. I know there's a lot of other programs out there that are probably more deserving of having an NCAA investigation going on than what Florida is currently.
Allie, you take someone like Chris, who epitomizes everything good about the work ethic, who set the standard during the Spurrier era of a guy who didn't get anything. He walked on to play for nothing, and he worked his way up to become a great player, leading the SEC in touchdown passes, all the records he broke and whatever. It's going to be hard, deep in his heart, to say, it's okay, give the guy $1 million, he'll earn it. It's just a different time. It's really hard for a lot of people with core values like that.
I think we're in this really weird era of college football. And I think that in 10 years, it's going to look really different. But do we want to wait 10 years before we start winning is essentially what we're faced with. None of us like what this has become, but I think we all can acknowledge that it's where we are, right? And so the teams that are winning are the teams that are paying these players. And yeah, from a former player standpoint, I can see why that would be frustrating. I also... the other side of it, I think about Eric's college roommate was Jarvis Moss, right? And so, one of the very biggest names on that 06 team, he slept on a twin air mattress on the floor in the second bedroom of Eric's house his entire senior year. He couldn't afford a bed. I don't know that he ever really paid Eric rent. He had Pell Grant and he had his scholarship and he had no family that ever got to come to games or anything. And I think about what NIL could have done for the Jarvis Mosses of the world. I just think it's kind of a perverted version of what we initially pictured NIL to be. And we've got to figure out a way to find some sort of balance between star players sleeping on a blow-up air mattress and star players making more money than first-year guys in the NFL are making. There has to be some middle ground. But the good news is there's so little return on investment for the people pouring money into this right now that there's got to be a market correction sometime soon.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Allie. And I think, the problem that I have is all of this occurring under the name of name, image, and likeness. It's the biggest sham taking place. We all know exactly what's going on. The rules say you can't, have recruiting inducements to bring kids to campus. It's happening every single day. There are deals negotiated long before guys are ever signing national letters of intent. You pay for play occurring on the field. It's a real thing as well. But I'm with you. The ROI is certainly not there. And I everybody that has a lot of money made that money for the most part being good business people. And I can't imagine that this is going to sustain itself for long. You guys have been on this show for a while tonight. I was watching the Alabama-Auburn basketball game, and Charles Barkley was on there. And even Charles Barkley said something has to change with what's going on. It's just not a sustainable way of this sport or college athletics in general to be able to sustain itself. And that's the problem that I have right now. My co-host on the SEC Network, Peter Burns, made the comment the other day that nothing's wrong with college athletics and college football. It just is different from what we've seen before. And my counter to that was, there's a lot of people that thought taking, the artificial sugar back in the day was good for you, a good replacement for sugar until they turned up with brain cancer 10 years later. So we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Right now, there needs to be better leadership taking place and some foresight that doesn't exist. And unfortunately, We don't have those people. We haven't had those players, those people in place at the NCAA, and that's why we're in the situation we're in right now. If they could have had even a little bit of foresight to have allowed players to make something instead of being so greedy, I firmly believe we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
The late Bill Carr, in fact, told me that at a meeting in November. I spoke at the Gators Quarterback Club. He said, I want to sit down with you and talk about this. He said, back when I was an AD, a group of us made a bad mistake. In 1980, when they started paying Olympic athletes, college football players should have started being paid too, and athletes. He said, if we'd done something then, maybe you wouldn't have this now. And so, he took responsibility for that. The hard part about this is that really good people are getting caught up in this thing, and poor coaches are defenseless. And I almost feel sorry for Billy Napier, but what I'm hearing out of him is a lot of nut talk, busy talk. I mean, I listened to that press conference and literally almost fell asleep today. I've heard it all. I'm not buying into what he's saying. He is actually almost filibustering. He talked for how long today? 45, 50 minutes. Basically had a long message on what would normally be a signing day, right? But of course, they sign no players, don't anybody else. And he doesn't have the answers, so he talks around them and changes nothing. At least this is one perception. I don't want to be too harsh on him. Guys like us, we all have a rooting interest in Florida. We're all Gator people. We want them to do well, but in our jobs to talk about it, we have to tell the truth. And the fact is, it's not working. How long do we go with Billy until we figure out, or do we say, well, we got to support him, we got to give him, whatever. What do we do, Chris Doering? What do we do?
I go back to kind of what Ali said before, and that's, if you're not arming him with what he needs to go be successful, you're sending him into a gunfight with a pocket knife. And so right now, I don't know that we can compete financially. I do think some of our collective is better off than a lot of others, but there are still, the big dogs out there that are able to lure players away. That's what we saw in the early signing period. Like, I talked to Eli Drinkwitz at the Senior Bowl last week. He doesn't even go out to see recruits, during the month of January. He didn't go see anybody until the last minute, because it comes down to, all right, what can you offer guys right before they're ready to sign? And it's a matter of negotiation, and the highest bidder more times than not is going to win. And you go back to what you said about me, buddy. Like, my dream as a kid my entire life was to play football at the University of Florida. These kids don't care about playing at Florida. They don't care about playing anywhere else. They have an idea that they're going to go to the NFL someday, and they're going to go play 3 years in college football, and they're going to go make a bunch of money doing it. And there's no allegiance at all. So I think one of the things we love the most about college football are the stories of the players and how you've gotten to know them over the 3 or 4 or 5 years that they're there. That's not going to happen anymore. You're going to get to know a guy for a year, and he's going to go somewhere else, and then there's going to be a new transient group of folks coming in. It was surprising to me. I don't know if you guys saw the list of returning experience from teams last year in the SEC. Florida's actually at number 4. If you think about all we lost, I mean, I think it speaks to a lot of the freshmen that were playing last year, a lot of the young guys in general. But I don't know that you're going to get a chance to really develop relationships with the players the way that fans have in the past, because of some of the rules that exist with NIL and transfer portal right now.
And that's what's going to be the actual downfall of the sport, because that is currently what this model is asking us to do, is cheer on a lesser version of the NFL. Essentially, if our players become mercenaries, the reason that we love college football is exactly what you said, is that we watch these kids grow up wanting to be Gators, or walk on and earn a scholarship, or, get to wear their dad's jersey number. There is so much history with college football that is intertwined with the personal stories of the athletes, unlike it is in the NFL. But if we're just going to make it the NFL, the product is inferior. So you might as well just watch NFL at that point.
Yeah, not only is it, you talk about being like the NFL, but there's no salary cap. There are no contractual obligations that keep players in place. So, like, you're talking about, a professional type system that has none of the rules that try to keep things in any sort of equitable position. So it's just not sustainable as it is right now.
Correct. I want to bring David Molt. Good evening, David. How you doing? Say hello to Allie and Chris, and hopefully your mic's working. There you go. I thought what you said last week was brilliant about, and Allie, remember the comment about when it gets to a point where kids don't want to go to play, no longer want to go play for the school where their grandfather played or dad played. It's just all a mercenary game. David, can you remember that comment from last week? Repeat what you said that night.
Yeah, Allie and I think we're talking, and I just said that if college football loses that, all right, there are many big differences between Saturdays and Sundays, and some of them you can just feel. Some of them you can see, you can touch, but some of them you can just feel. And that's, to me, a feeling. And if college football loses that, a family of Gators, and all of a sudden it's not important to watch the Gators, go to the Gators, the kids don't necessarily want to also be Gators, if that gets lost in the professionalization of college football, I don't know how you get that back. I think if that ever gets lost, I think it's gone forever. And that is part of what makes Saturdays different and to many people more special than Sundays.
Yeah,
I would say what makes it even worse, buddy, and not to interrupt you, but like the idea, I've even before NIL stuff and all, we've seen, people in bloodlines decide to go elsewhere. But the problem that I have is, when you have the guys on campus that talk about a brotherhood on the field, that talk about always wanting to be a Gator for the rest of their lives, that decide to go somewhere else. That's the bond that is the weakest, that I see to be the biggest issue right now, because I could never have imagined leaving any of those guys that I came in with and not finishing out what I started. And I don't think any of these guys feel that obligation at all now these days.
Could you imagine transferring to your biggest rival?
Nope. And I could not imagine trying to attest, how much of a Gator I am, and then going to do that on the heels of making that statement.
Chris, can I ask you how important you think winning is in this? You were winning quickly. The thought, why would you leave if why would any of your brothers leave? Because you guys were successful. When Allie and her family, even though their family had ups and downs, but I mean, a lot more success than not. I'm just curious how much you two think the fact that they're not winning right now has to do with, I don't know. I guess I could go somewhere else. It's got to be better than this.
It's a different mindset, because, my mindset is any team I'm going to be on is going to win. Like, I'm going to be a part of causing us to be winners. Like, I want to be a part of building that. Those are the things that real competitors think. I think I blame a lot of this on Kevin Durant, that mindset that, hey, I can't win on my own, so I'm going to go join a team that's already winning. That's the NBA model. That's what a lot of these kids have seen growing up. They don't understand the impact that maybe they don't want to accept the responsibility of what they can make a difference in terms of turning a program around that's in the midst of mediocrity and turning them into a winner. So I take far more joy and pleasure in creating a winning program where there was not one before than going to just join one because it's easy to go be a part of somebody that's already got it rolling.
My dad was on that 10-1 team. And you know what he did the next year? He bought his season tickets, and that's what's missing. That's what's different. I think about growing up and going to the Golden Era reunions and then going to the Super 70s with my dad and spending that time in the F Club. That place is going to be empty in 20 years. There's not going to be the young families running around with the kids because nobody's going to have spent enough time to care to come back. And that's the erosion of the sport. That's what's going to happen if we continue on this path.
But don't you think we've done this, and I hate to sound like old guy, get off my lawn, but don't you think we've done this at the youth level, which is then carried on to high school? I mean, nobody suffers through mediocrity, never mind losing anymore, at AAU and high school if they don't have to. I mean, Florida, you can transfer, you can literally play football, basketball, and baseball all at 3 different high schools in the same calendar, in the same school year. I mean, nobody has to accept struggling on the scoreboard anymore in youth sports. I mean, guys leave AAU teams for playing time and to win, and travel teams, and and certainly in high school. Nobody. I mean, I remember J. Ron Kearse, who's now playing for the Cowboys. I mean, he went to 3 different high schools because, well, the first one wasn't winning, the second one was okay, the third one was really good.
Well, guess what? NIL is legal in the state of Florida in high school starting this fall. So just wait and see what that does to it.
Yeah. It's a really interesting subject because I tell Spurrier and Meyer all the time, you guys screwed it up for everybody. I mean, who's going to come in and match what they did? And the question is, do Florida fans have the gumption to weather through? Is it a cliche in all kinds of weather? Because people are bailing right and left. Here's a guy who's been openly critical on this program a lot, and he says something that's really terrific right here. If I can get it up on the screen, I think it's true. We were winners for 100 years before we were champions, so it's all right with me. That's a beautiful thing right there, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that, a lot of especially younger fans that don't understand the history of Florida football and remember the years of the wait till next year mantra and the idea of being very close and always having some disappointing loss to Georgia or Kentucky derail us from getting to that first SEC championship game or getting to a national title. So, yeah, I mean, I hate to say that we're lowering the bar of expectation because I can tell you firsthand, like there was a time in the 90s, and you guys know this, and in 2000s as well, like that first weekend of December, everybody already had their hotel booked in Atlanta. Yeah. We were going to be a part of that SEC championship weekend. That's not the case anymore. I'm tired of going to SEC championship games and not having Florida be a part of it. I'm tired of going to college football playoff games and not having Florida be a part of it. And I think adding a little bit more insult to injury is when you see a Missouri or an Ole Miss come out and win 11 games and have themselves in a position to be in a 12-team playoff next year. In Florida, can't even get bowl eligible. That makes it even more difficult to destroy. Now, I'm not bailing by any means. I'm going to support the hell out of my alma mater. I'm a Bull Gator. I give my money. I go to all the sporting events that I can. I certainly love the University of Florida more than anything. But I definitely think that at this point we are nothing more than an also-ran.
Ouch. It's true. That's what hurts about it. Well, anyway, so I guess we can moralize all we want to. The fact is what it is, and you got to pay. You got to pay people to get players, and you're gonna get put in if you don't get players. So here we are. We're stuck with this system, albeit a horrible one, which is costing us in many ways. And what's a Gator fan to do, David?
Well, my hope is that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are going to begin to. And it may take 2, 3, 5 years, but my hope is, guys, that there will come a point where we're all playing by the same rules. And what I mean by that is financially, that whatever it is, okay, because clearly right now it's to the highest bidder. So it's all dependent on whose pay-per-view, pay-for-play NIL department has the most money. And if you aren't a top 10 school in terms of money, you're not getting, the players. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, look, Florida State has out NIL'd Florida in the last 2 years. I mean, look at what they're doing in the transfer portal. Okay, they've had more money.
I mean, I'm going to push back on that a tiny bit. I think we need the money if we're going to be a championship level team. If we're going to make the playoffs, I think we need to be more serious about NIL, get more donors, have more backing from the university. But the reality is we had a top 15 talent profile this year, and we lost to schools with way less talent than us. Florida beat Arkansas and Missouri and Utah. We're not sitting here having the same conversation, and the money didn't have to change at all. So there is a level of this in that, like, we got to do better in-house too. If we want to win a championship, we're going to need some more money. But how about we just win 8 or 9 games to start? We have the talent to do that, and we're not.
Great point. Great point. And I think it's the essence of what we're talking about here. It's not okay for Billy Napier to have a third straight losing season. I like the guy. I think he's sound. I don't know if he's not maybe a half a step behind some things. I'm not sure. but it's going to be a really difficult thing to sell if you can't win. It's again chicken and egg, which is first. I don't know.
Hope wins.
What's
You
that?
can't sell, you got to sell hope or you got to sell wins.
Yeah, exactly. In the essence of Chris, this directed to you. The truth of the matter is, competitor, you know this, goes back to the days of Junction, Texas, and Bear Bryant when they beat the crap out of each other and took 4 busloads out there and came back with 20 players that built that program. And you, as an walk-on, you told me many times, Chris, it's not fun getting the crap beat out of you as a walk-on, and you got that. And that pain that you got is part of what it's about, isn't it? That's really why when Doering got a touchdown happen, it was so great because of the pain and enduring and not winning an conference championship and all coming together. But the pain, David and Allie, is part of it, is it not?
Yeah, when you talk about pain, for me, it wasn't necessarily the physical pain. It was the doubters. It was the people telling me I wasn't good enough. It was being overlooked with the scholarship. It was the work that it took to get noticed. It was all of that. And so I've talked to you guys before about it many times. Personally, I am grateful for the path that I took, that I had to walk on, that I had to prove myself, that everything I earned came from what I did on the field and not from a reputation from high school. And I'll say this as well, being a part of those teams in the 90s where, we lost in the first SEC championship game and then went back in 93, 94, 95, and 96 to Atlanta and won SEC championships. Getting to a national championship game against Nebraska and getting our ass beat by Tommy Frazier and those group, and then having the 96 team go back. When you have failure and you succeed after that failure, it makes the appreciation for what you've accomplished that much greater. And so my hope is that we're going to get there, and then we'll look back at this period of time, and Florida fans will realize it's not an entitlement to get to Atlanta. It's not an entitlement to win national championships. It takes a lot of hard work. And we had Lamont Paris on. I don't know how much you guys have talked to Lamont Paris, the South Carolina basketball coach, but he made a great statement about what it was like last year with their losing to come to where they are now. He said, how can you appreciate the sunshine if you don't have the rain? And right now it's been raining for a while here, but when we get back on top, we'll have a much better appreciation for that once we've gotten that sunshine again.
We're talking faith, Allie. Faith, and who's got it?
Listen, I will always support the University of Florida and the Gators, the players on those teams, whoever the head coach is, this season moving forward. But, I think that most Gator fans are in a wait and see mode, right? I don't think spring's going to tell you a whole lot because you're going up against your own guys. I think we're not going to know a whole lot until August. And unfortunately, that's going to make Gator Nation antsy, right? There's not going to be any answers until we put the pads on again in August.
Chris, I want to talk to you and David and Allie about collateral damage. I know you got to go, Chris, because I want to tie you up tonight that long. But collateral damage is the thing we have to worry about here, that things can be changed that can never be brought back. I don't necessarily think this is a good example, but Nick Saban's gone. And you think, how much of that was the system? How much of it was Nick just, I can't do this anymore, it's killing me? And you know it's going to happen sooner or later. But we're going to lose these people. They're Nick Saban's don't drop off the back of turnip trucks. And the question becomes, what is the collateral damage? What will it be? And how badly damaged will some programs be? That's the difficult part. David, you start. Allie, and then Chris, I'll let you go after your comment.
Well, if there's a major issue in college football right now, and you're a member of the national media, who's the coach that you have to get a quote from? That's what I think has just been lost. Nick was the spokesperson for college football. And now do we go to Kirby? I mean, Harbaugh also leaving and going to the NFL. Yeah. I mean, I do think that there's a little bit of a stature leadership vacuum amongst the coaches. It's kind of like in college hoops, when you've got Roy Williams, Jim Boeheim, and Mike Krzyzewski who all retire within an 18-month period of time, there's a little bit of a stature and leadership vacuum that, has left the college football coaching profession here. But I think what ails college football is above the coaches, though. I do. I think this is at the Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti level going forward. I really do. And I think it could be solved. I actually think what took place this week with the Dartmouth men's basketball team, I actually think that making the players employees, okay, employees can be fired. Employees can have their salaries reduced. I mean, it's not going to be as great for these athletes being employees as everybody thinks. In fact, I think it's the only way that you can rein in the costs. Okay, if you actually start running the teams and the athletic department like a business, we only have so much money. You can ask for whatever you want. I've only got this. Okay, and it'll be that way across the board in theory. So I actually think what looks like the sport is about ready to careen out of control, I actually think in 3 to 5 years is going to get us where we need to be, which is a structure.
Allie?
I hope that that's the case. I do think that there will be some adjustment here. I think it probably has to involve some sort of revenue share with the television deals and things like that. It's asinine to think that the current model is let's ask the fan who pays for the tickets, buys the hot dogs and the gas and the hotel room, and takes off of work or misses their other weekend activities or whatever to drive their fans there, to then pay for the product on the field by paying their salary, when these universities have, massive contracts with ESPN and Fox and whatever. Like, it's mind-blowing that is the concept that we have at this exact moment. And it is also mind-blowing that we're paying, 17-year-old kids $8 million to come to Tennessee, or, Nico's supposedly getting, or what the $13 million that it's rumored Rashada was going to get for us. And that's what we're in trouble for. That's asinine. And, one of our big NIL guys told me that one of our players on our team is going to make more money than one of the starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl this upcoming year. Wrap your mind around that. A player that has not taken a snap yet for Florida. And that's not only unsustainable, it's asinine.
I'll go back to your original point, buddy, about collateral damage and things being done that can't be undone.
No.
One thing that stands out to me is the reputation of the University of Florida and winning, and what that program and that logo have meant to kids growing up. Like, there's a lot of these young kids that don't have any idea of what Florida's history of winning was, or what it means to be a Gator. I think that's some of the collateral damage. But the real collateral damage that I'm worried about as it relates to coaches, or the bright young coaches that are going to elect to go to the NFL instead of the college ranks because of the lifestyle. Way more time off, way more structure in terms of their schedule, not having to deal with the entitlement that a lot of these kids have, not having to deal with re-recruiting your own roster over and over again. When you have a head coach at Boston College decide to go be a coordinator in the NFL, a step back in both stature and in salary, I think it speaks to, what the future holds for other coaches. And, some have figured it out. It's still a very lucrative career, and so you'll have people do it. But I think the best and the brightest will continue to aggregate in the NFL, and ultimately, we won't have the development of these kids, of them as players, and the teams and the products that are on the field because of it.
Chris, if I could ask you a question, and I know you started as a walk-on, did you and the guys ever talk 30 years ago about, man, we probably deserve more than just a scholarship? Okay.
Never.
I mean, I'm just, never. So that never came up.
Well, that was never a concept that, Florida wasn't paying anybody.
No, but I just hypothetically, you're watching the parade, and, you're going through the bookstore, people are wearing your jersey, and you're like, boy, I'd like a cut of that.
Yeah, you know what? They used to sell hats with our numbers on it, and it wasn't – I never thought about, man, I wish I had some money from the sale of that hat. I was like, man, I wish more people were wearing that 28 hat around the stadium. So it was something cool to have been a part of there. But Yeah, I don't think we realized it. Shoot, the money obviously wasn't the same. Ali mentioned the television deals, and those things have ballooned in a quick period of time. But should there be? I believe there should be something that they get a piece of. There's far too much money being generated, but to not have any rules whatsoever to try to keep everybody on the same page and a balanced playing field. I think to me, man, I want, even if I was in the midst of it, like I couldn't imagine being a part of the fall of the of something great like college football by being so worried about what my own what I was going to be able to prosper from and being in that locker room. Like I couldn't look at my teammates in the eyes and knowing that I was making over $1 million and there were linemen on the team or other people there that weren't making anything. I just would have a hard time with that, man.
Good stuff. And I know you got to go. I just want to leave you to stop. I talked last night to the CEO of Florida Victorious, Nate Barbera. He was on with Freddie. I did not know this. It's interesting. There are rules and regulations for the people who were signed up. They have to commit to certain things. They do. And if they don't do them, they get doxxed. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So, all right. So, Chris, thanks, buddy.
You think that's just to be able to fulfill the idea that they're doing something to earn the money other than playing football. So it's not like they're out here doing some great charitable work.
No, but I'm just saying they have to show up. They can't take their phone out and start talking. There's certain rules that if you're on their list, you got to do. So
I keep my phone in my pocket for $1 million. I'm fine with that. That'd be all right. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Good stuff from Chris, story number 28. Guys, give me a minute here to pay a bill. Come right back and pick it up on this interesting conversation tonight. A night when Florida did not sign a single person on National Signing Day. Not to panic, but a little different, guys, than what it used to be around here. Let's hear from our friends at Meldon Law. Jeffrey Meldon. Jeffrey, you do a show where you ask a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it. In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms, that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV, but after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get. All right, thanks very much. It's Jeffrey Meldon and Meldon Law. They will fight for you, so check them out and go online. All right, guys. So I'm looking at this sheet, Ali. I know, David, you weren't at the press conference today, and I wasn't either. And Billy handed out this sheet, facts about the 2024 class. It's nice. It tells you how many 7 true freshmen played every regular season game. All about the stats of how many freshmen played, academics, how well they did, how Gator Made is going to help them next year with a Japan trip abroad, etc. The walk-on program, all this stuff. And I think back to that famous old quote by the Englishman who said, don't confuse, what is it? Don't confuse activity with achievement. A lot of activity, not much achievement. Ali, you had some things to say when we came on here about Billy's presser today. You want to share them?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think the area that Florida needs the absolute most help in, and this is saying something because there's a lot of areas they need help in, would be the PR department. There were so many things that he said in this press conference today that I was mind blown that you say these things out loud. I love what Doering said about Ron Roberts and bringing him on the staff. And I do think that the staff immediately got better by hiring him. But I also think it's crazy for Napier to stand up there and say that one of Ron Roberts' responsibilities is to coach the coaches. don't say that part out loud. Just say we're getting a seasoned coach to help us steer our defense in the right direction. Like, you stood up there and said that your defensive coordinator needs a coach for himself. It's mind blowing. And the same concept when you get asked about Hawk being, reassigned somewhere else, and you talk about him. Oh yeah, he's now in charge of positive messaging, or however he did. Like, the jokes write themselves at this point. There was so many things that he said that I wanted to know who was coaching him, who was telling you these are okay things to say. You're making it worse. Sit up there and tell us, hey, we got better this offseason. We hired coaches that we help think, improve our chances of winning on the field. We retained coaches that we think have already got us moving, in the right direction. And we wanted to keep that momentum going. Like, give me some fluff. I don't know what he was trying to do, but it was, the message was lost.
Allie, be careful. You say critical things, they might remove you from their social media. Oh, wait a minute, they did.
Okay, they already did. Supposedly, Billy Napier had a meeting where he asked all of his staffers to unfollow a whole bunch of Gator media. And when I first heard that, I thought, there's no way that was a meeting, that somebody wasted time on this meeting. But then lo and behold, I go and look at my social media accounts, and they're no longer followed by lots of staffers who used to follow me. So maybe this meeting did take place, but it's just, that's a circle the wagons mentality that I think we see happening
at the end.
At the end, we do. And I don't want it to be the end. So I say that, and I feel bad saying that, because I think Billy Napier is a good person and I want this program to win. But there's kind of like steps that as you watch the decline of something. And one of them is circling the wagons. And, the media is not your enemy. And also, just because you don't follow them doesn't mean that they are not going to report the story. And it's not our job as Gator media or Gator fans or Gator alumni to only share the good. We have to be able to be honest and open about what it is that is going on, because otherwise, what's the point of the media?
Well, David, it sounds, I hate to say it, sounds Third Reichish almost.
Well, it actually sounds very small. It sounds, quite frankly, like they're not adults, that they're not up to the job. I mean, really? Okay. I mean, if they spent a minute and a half on this, it would alarm the hell out of me if I were their boss, never mind if I was just a fan. Honestly, I'm like, wait a minute, you're wasting your time on this? Wait a minute, you're actually, what? Honestly, this is very small. I mean, it's stunning that this has happened. It really is. It screams he and his staff are not up to this job. It does. This screams Sunbelt Billy. This really does. This does. In fact, I'm not that I just took a shot at the Sunbelt that they didn't deserve. My apologies to the Sunbelt.
Yeah, and look, the smart people see through that. Like I said, these press conferences more and more like babble. Let me talk and talk and talk.
First off, could you just answer the question? Are you calling plays or not? No. Right. Come on, treat us like adults. Yeah. I mean, some of us were spending a lot of time and a lot of money and effort and energy. Could you just? Are you calling plays or not? Okay. Well, yes, I have the final say on plays, but I'm going to collaborate with this guy. Okay, whatever. You're not giving away state secrets here, but we want to know: are you making changes? Okay,
it's your choice to own it.
Yeah. I mean, come on, be an adult.
To do. If you have no interest in changing what you're doing, it should only be because you feel so strongly about what you're currently doing that you couldn't possibly imagine changing it. So then stand in the paint and tell us that. Don't, yeah. Russ Callaway might have some more increased responsibilities, and we're kind of trying to decide exactly what roles are going to be. Like, what?
Yeah, sell us on continuity. Sell us on, believe it or not, okay, staying the course is the right way to go. I know people want change, so it's the easy thing to do. I'm telling you the right thing to do. The play calling, there were some things I'd want back, but believe it or not, play calling wasn't the problem. Execution was more the problem than the play calling. Okay, we bring new people back, another year of the quarterback and me working together. Trust me, we're better off staying the course than we are making changes. Sell it.
Yeah. And own it. I mean, and that's, and truly, I can see from his point of view, the argument of, okay, I know that 2024 is do or die for me. I want full control over whether or not I live or die at the University of Florida. I want control of my own destiny. I think that I'm a good enough play caller. It's gotten me to where I am today, and I am staying that course. I can wrap my head around why that would be his decision. But this, tiptoeing around what the answer is, this is silly. Just tell us.
Yeah, I think, oddly enough, the most important person who got promoted or hired, whatever, was not Ron Roberts or anybody on the defense. Might be Freddie Weeby, who's the guy who can help bail them out with money. The problem is we don't have the confidence that Billy knows how to spend that money. And here's an example from a guy, I don't know who Scott Perry is. He tweeted this today after the press conference. He says, so why wasn't this question asked? Billy, you fired 2 good coaches and claimed to evaluate everything. You returned 2 offensive line coaches who bolted a bottom 2 offensive line and recruited poorly. What are you evaluating? Level of friendship?
So I was told that one of the reasons that they were not making a change there is because they really feel like a lot of the line issues had to do with the strength and conditioning program. I can
pass that buck on down. Sure, pass it on.
I can buy that outside of the fact that it's also Napier's responsibility to hire
him. That's exactly right. Who did that?
There is one coach that you hired that needed to be from the SEC to fully understand the SEC grind, it needed to be your strength and conditioning coach. If there is one position that can't be an on-the-job training, it is strength and conditioning. And that is not what happened. He brought over Hawk from the Sun Belt with him. And if you think the kind of conditioning that you need to do to win at Louisiana Lafayette is the same that you need to do at the University of Florida, we've got some problems, right? Like we've got to have a conversation because it's just not the same level of strength and conditioning. And we all saw that throughout the year. So I do understand that line of thinking maybe, but then that flies, then why fire your defensive coaches? Because I think you can make that same argument there too.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the other things he said in this particular situation, and he's not giving us answers. And it is, in fact, what it is, it's the DJ Lagway stakes. If he can be bailed out with some NIL money and a guy named DJ Lagway, there's hope. By the way, DJ Lagway got a NIL deal today. Hear about it? 5-star plus. The top-ranked quarterback in the 2024 class has a record $859,000 on 3 NIL evaluations. So, and he got signed a deal today. So he's done quite well. Can one guy bail Billy out, though, David?
Well, in theory, he's not going to do much on the field this year to bail him out. But what I have been saying is Napier's job status 1 year more secure than we think because of the real possibility. I mean, DJ has said, hey, I'm coming here because of Napier. Well, if you get rid of Napier,
that's true.
I mean, we just saw 24 Alabama players go, wait, Nick's gone? Oh, I'm out of here. So what's to prevent one quarterback from getting up and leaving Gainesville if we get rid of the guy that he says, well, the reason I'm here is Billy Napier? So that's the thing that I'm wondering is, does Billy Napier get 2025? Because that'll be the first time we see Lagway playing, and we need to see him playing. We can't afford to lose him.
I think we'll see him a little bit this year, and I definitely don't want to lose DJ Lagway, and I have heard the same thing that they are tied together. But I will say, if we fire Billy Napier after this year, the transfer portal will help whoever we hire bring a quarterback here. Think about all the quarterbacks that go in the transfer portal every single year. I don't think that we can determine the fate of a program based on one player, even though I think this player has the ability to be potentially generational. And, the hope is that he falls in love with Gainesville and the University of Florida and being a Gator. And it goes back to the old adage, like we used to say to recruits. I would talk to high school recruits all the time, and I would always tell them, you don't commit to the coach, you commit to the program. Fall in love with the school, fall in love with the opportunities that it presents, fall in love with the history and the tradition. Do not commit to a coach because you have no idea if that person would be there. And, that's the same advice I would tell Lagway if Napier's on the way out. But, hopefully he turns things around. There's nothing from this press conference today that gave me any more hope than I had prior to watching it.
Yeah. Let me do this real quick. I'll talk about Miles Graham before I let you go. A guy who did come back. He does have a love and legacy there at Florida. Titan MRI is worth a short drive to Gainesville. No insurance is no problem. You can pay with cash or card with same-day scheduling available. You can start feeling better today because Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville site from Ocala, Marion County, and the villages. That's TitanMRI.com. Miles Graham, what a football player he apparently is. His daddy was a great football player. That's the kind of legacy you want to have these players to have. What about those Miles Grahams, Allie? We think we'll start losing him?
I hope not. This upcoming team has a ton of legacy players on it, which is interesting. If you saw Thaddeus Bullard's son just signed a preferred walk-on spot today.
Yeah.
He's from Berkeley up out of Tampa. We have, I want to say there's 5 guys now that are legacies on that team. And that gives me hope. That makes me happy that there are people there that know the history of this jersey and are playing for the logo on the front, not just the name on the back. And I do think that 2024 class is filled with kids who are motivated by the right thing. And, obviously that doesn't mean that they came to us for free, but I am hopeful at the type of player and person that we've brought in. But by and large, the legacy stuff is going to go away if we continue down this path.
David, you're the one who brought it up last week about how they had to have this kind of legacy stuff to keep it going.
Well, I think college football needs to keep it. I think as the sport as a whole, Florida needs to win. We're at the point now where they need to win games. Period. End of sentence. I mean, why did things turn around in Tallahassee? Because in year 3, they went 10-3. That's why things then turned around. That was his make or break year, and he was able to convince people to stay, and he had a much better off season from year 2 to year 3 than what Billy Napier has seemingly had. Okay, because he hit the portal. He got more guys who could help him in year 3, not just part of a high school class that could help him in year 4 or year 5. And they got over the hump. They lost 3 games in a row in October of year 3, and the season was teetering, and they got over the hump. And what helped them get over the hump was they had a quarterback. And that is my hope for Florida this year, whether it's Mertz or whether it's DJ. In theory, this program has a competent, at worst, and potentially much better than that, quarterback play. Well, that's how you win the close games. That's how you turn 6-7 into 9-3. And it's time. It's time. Not going to be easy. Miami, UCF, got to win those games just to keep the boosters off your back. And then, okay, like Allie talked about, I didn't think they were going to win at Utah last year. But look at the other 2 games. I mean, clearly should have beat Missouri, should have beat Arkansas. How different would Billy Napier's life be if he had just won those 2 games? Right? That'd be 8 wins that would have gone to a bowl, or 7 wins that would have gone to a bowl. And then who knows? Maybe this is an 8-5 season, and life would be. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about 2024's make or break. We'd be saying, well, he's got at least 2 years.
You're 8-5. Totally different ball game this offseason.
Yeah.
Your seat is not warm. You've made progress from one year to the next, and you're bringing in a great class of recruits. Life would be good for Billy Napier had he just finished 8-5. I think you could have even finished potentially 7-6 and still had the same, amount of buzz. But the hardest part about all of it to swallow is it was doable. Don't tell me NIL. Don't tell me strength and conditioning. Don't tell me there was mental mistakes and coaching mistakes made that cost Florida enough games for there to not be a monkey on Napier's back.
Great stuff, guys. Go ahead, David. Go ahead, David.
They need to get dudes, though. Okay, they don't have enough dudes. They don't. Okay, they don't. But Allie's completely right. They did not maximize what they had in the cupboard. Okay, they didn't. This meal could have been 2 or 3 wins better. Okay, even though we all would acknowledge they are not in the area code of where they want to get to and need to get to, but the meal should have been a lot better than it was.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. Terrific job tonight, both of you. Appreciate it. Allie, thank you. David, be well. Talk next week.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Allie Peak, David Moulton, two of the best. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up tonight. And with this, we're going to tell you about our friends at David. Just go ahead and exit off when you're ready.
I'm trying.
I know. It's all right. You got it. Thank you. I want to tell you about our friends. It's very important that we support these people because they do so much for our community, have done so much for Gator Sports, and so much for us. And we do appreciate everything they do. If for nothing else, it's help us be healthier. Right here in Ocala, we've got a first-class facility, which is used around the country by companies like pharmaceutical and biomedical companies to get research and data to find out more about what we can do to keep ourselves healthy. And they have this high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility right here in Ocala, and they have cutting-edge clinical research trials here, things like Alzheimer's and dementia, psoriasis, etc., that affect us. And they're looking for answers for other things that people in our community have. So since their inception in 1998, they've had more than 700 of these clinical research trials. Continue to partner with these prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies. If you want to be a part of these particular programs and may be compensated for time and travel, you can contact them through renstar.net, find out what it takes to qualify, and perhaps you can be a member of that team. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Terrific show tonight with Chris Doering, Allie Peak Wilbur, David Moulton. Appreciate you all listening and watching. Thanks to our sponsors. Come back tomorrow night. Orange Blue Bloods right here on the same channel. It's the Buddy Martin Show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.